before I go into like a more formal introduction of you, please tell us where are you right now? What time zone are you in? And maybe one or two things about what is fascinating you at this moment.
Okay, great. Well, I'm actually in England right now, so I'm in the 000 time zone. And what's fascinating me right now, I on Monday I was in San Francisco, like last Monday, I was in San
Mhm.
Francisco at the OpenAI Developer Day. I
Oh,
think video models are getting very good, very, very fast. So
I
that's something
bet.
that's happening right now.
Oh my gosh. That's so exciting. What a way to start. You were at OpenAI. I think I actually saw the post. I was going to ask you more. So enough suspense, actually. Let me introduce you. And Moritz is the co-founder of Robotic Labs. He has researched human AI collaboration and robotic fabrication at UC Berkeley, lectured internationally, and published widely on AI and design. We understand that the University of Art and Design Linz, focusing on advanced digital manufacturing and robotic additive processes. Romantic Labs is developing human-centered AI design tools that expand creativity and productivity. And you guys combine tech, architecture, and business strategy capabilities to revolutionize how we interact with design software. The first product, Raven, is an AI copilot for Rhino, Grasshopper, and helps creating parametric geometry and supercharging at workflows, analysis, and explorations. So, Moritz, how fascinating. And you are really at the forefront of developing something, as I can understand, really helps with Grasshopper users and Rhino users. So, in the first 10 minutes, which is one of my favorite parts where we chat. Tell me, where did that passion come from? Because we understand you've gone from robots and then to now Raven and Romantic Labs. So where does that, passion of this really come from for yourself?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, it might look like we picked a sort of niche world in design to be in with this Rhino and Grasshopper. And also maybe sounds weird that I used to do robotic fabrication and now I'm doing parametric design. But actually, the interesting thing is that Rhino within the like CAD software landscape is this, I like to say, like this hippie world where everything's possible, everything's open. You can like interact and like write plugins that interact with the SDK in like really varied ways. And so it happens to be a very fruitful like kind of plate where all sorts of things grow. So most of the academia in research and architecture and also in structural engineering actually sits and performs their research on top of Rhino and Grasshopper because it's so interoperable and like programmable, and it's really exciting. And the same is true, of course, for like the sort of cutting edge in architectural design. The skyscrapers of the world are also designed with Rhino and Grasshopper because it's so open and it lets you really like bring all your engineering expertise into this world and do whatever you want. Whereas most other CAD software is usually more closed off and like monolithic. So they will like build services and they are available to you, but it's much harder to expand. And so I'm very lucky that I started off my whole CAD journey in this world. So when I used the robotic fabrication, all of that, we also use the Grasshopper platform as sort of an origin point because it's so open and you can really like program whatever you want onto it. So all of my journey, even though it like the outputs have been kind of different, they've all sort of circled around these two platforms in the CAD world because they're so hackable, both in an academic setting and also in like sort of advanced professional settings. So for me, it's really been like sort of a satelliting around a Rhino Grasshopper this whole time.
Got it. So, and then to zoom out of, the niche that you mentioned, the grasshopper world
Hmm.
and the rhino world, and, you mentioned that this really came from the relevance that is from the robotic fabrication. But then to
Hmm.
zoom out, what problem are you trying to solve here? Maybe this is what investors like to ask. And what
Hmm.
what problem are you trying to solve here? And for those who, let's say, have never used Rhino or Grasshopper before and they just kind of know you for the first time, what problem
Hmm.
are you trying to solve?
Yeah, so I just want to bring CAD into the AI age. So I think anyone who's interacted with CAD at any point in the last 30 years, because it really hasn't changed much, knows how much repetitive work there is and how dull the work is. I mean, that's why the higher ups stopped doing CAD quite quickly because it's really just like clicking around once you've already made like all of your decisions and you just sort of type them into the computer for hours and days on end. And I think that leaves a lot of potential underutilized. So instead of spending all this time specifying all the decisions we've already made into our CAD models, we should really have more time iterating, right? And so speeding up the sort of making model part and maybe more importantly so also the analysis of our models would allow us to really like build better. I mean, all the things that we build are modeled in CAD at some point, and making this process. I mean, I think we have the technology to make it faster and better and more fun and like all the good things, and really just like speed it up. We have the technology. We just like need to like deploy it and engineer it. And so we happen to do this in the world of Grasshopper, which is a parametric scripting language, which is like a node-based graph editor that lets you author 3D tools. But I don't see our work as being sort of confined to this niche. It's just you got to start somewhere, and I think is a great place to start. But really, CAD work I think the CAD world really needs some new ideas and some new workflows. So yeah, I'm excited to make faster and easier to use, because I think most CAD software is good. Like the algorithms are good and the tools, the analysis that you can run are good, but they require way too much expertise and way too much time for there to be really a positive impact in the world.
Amazing. Yeah, I share your frustration on that. I detest CAD, and I also feel like, I support anyone who has the ambition to replace it. Yeah, because there's just so many other things that people can make good use of their expertise rather than drawing CAD. Yeah, even though it is a straightforward tool, but anyway. So I have a question about cross-contextualization. You've gone to OpenAI Development Day just recently, and of course there are all of these other, like you mentioned, video tools and all the exciting stuff happening in this field. What are some of the things that you maybe picked up from other teams or other people that you've come across? I'm sure Silicon Valley, of course, everyone's building something, and maybe not everyone that you've come across is in construction. They might be in other industries. What have you come across and picked up that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So the thing is, I like to keep tabs on the research side. I used to be in research myself, and it's kind of the corporate research you can't really keep tabs on because they keep most of it private until they release a product. But on the public research, I'd like to keep tabs on that, even though we're building like a company now. And this is really like in the AI space, very often it's about methods and not really specific to a domain. And so maybe a method that I think is exciting and probably will become more relevant over time, but isn't there yet, is graph neural networks, even graph transformers. So models that don't learn on serial data. So like text, for example, has a direction, is like a series of data points, but rather data that is in a graph structure. So referential or like theory branches or things like that. Obviously, I come to this because my data is graph structured, but I think a lot of the data in the world is graph structured. And right now models process everything serially, or like not all models, but the text models do. And that might be a limitation where eventually being able to understand graph structures, the data that we process, will be really important. And so there's some cool research on this in Stanford. There was actually also just a meetup, I think last week, at the graph learning workshop. I couldn't attend. I was there last year, but this is a world of research that I like to keep tabs on that I think will become very relevant over time.
Amazing. Thank you also for sharing the difference between the graph and the serial. And I think it sounds like maybe halfway down your entrepreneurship, sounds like you're interested in getting a PhD as well. I'm sure it has crossed your mind.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy building a company, but even in a company, you can invent new things and stay relevant all the time.
Exactly. And I think you are probably the kind of person that, yes, you're very interested in research, but of course, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, the point is to utilize your research in an application and then to actually see it makes an impact in the world and it ripples. So fantastic.
Exactly.
Great. I think I have used up my 10 minutes of the chit chat. So Moritz, feel free to share a screen and show the world what you'd like to share. Thank you.
Okay, so I've prepared a couple of demos. So first of all, Romantic Technology is sort of our homepage. And then since we're tooling Grasshopper, where everything is animal themed and you need an animal name, our tool is called Raven. And so you guys can look it up right there. I obviously have it installed and ready to go to give you guys a little demo. So here we are in Rhino, which is this CAD software here on the right side. And I have downtown San Francisco here with a nice little lot. So this demo that I'm showing, our tool is really quite general, but actually, okay, of course, this is going to happen. I need to restart my system here.
No problem.
So,
Murphy's Law.
okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of different demos for sort of different industries or maybe people within this CAD world to show really also how flexible what we're making is. And the first one is for real estate. So we've had a lot of interest from people doing massing studies and feasibility studies. So if you're a real estate developer, you might be looking to acquire a plot, and before you buy it, you want to run some studies on it. You usually the way that this works is that you have an interior team, so people inside of the company that are looking at lots and then suggesting them to be bought by their higher ups. And so the way that they do is that they build like a little business case around them, and then they try to like internally sell this business case. And okay, so I'm back here now. Gonna find you guys again. There we go. And so here is our downtown San Francisco. What? Okay.
No stress.
One more try. Yeah. This
No
was a demo
problem.
problem.
Take it
So
easy.
basically, what's happening? I can tell you guys. This is a little bit embarrassing, but we'll get to it. So
No worries.
I have
It adds to the suspense.
exactly. I have a developer version of my tool installed, which is always okay, which can be a little bit okay. Should be. Yeah, no, we're good to go. We're good to go. Okay. So on the right side, I will open up this plot of San Francisco. And you can imagine we're building here in like the most exciting lot ever. It's Market Street 1. So if you know San Francisco, this would be the ferry building. Here's just a little bit of scenery. And then on the left hand, you can see this canvas, which allows me to build like this graph that describes, my program. So it's kind of like a graph-based programming tool. This is Grasshopper and Rhino. So these things are sort of already existent and very popular in our architecture space. And now here we can pop up Raven, which is our AI tool. And the great thing with Raven is it's actually extremely dynamic. So there's a lot of different industries and applications for it. And now I have here a couple of prompts that I can just insert to Raven and make it do like take on one role or another. And then I will open the settings and paste a real estate agent prompt into Raven. You can imagine that you might already have this, if you're a real estate developer, you will install this once and it will just be there. And then I'm going to select a couple of tools here. So these tools that you see that are open for selection, they're actually tools built by third parties. So Rhino and Grasshopper have a really, really big development community that builds tools for, programming robots and doing massing studies and doing, structural analysis and whatever you need, like FEM solvers are built on top of Grasshopper. So this is a really lively and big community with, large companies building for Grasshopper, and Raven can tap into all of that power. So it's basically a community of tools that are also enabling Raven and Raven enabling them. So it's really like a common thing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Raven to create a massing study, and I already gave Raven the plot outline. So as you can see, selecting this rectangle component lights up the plot that we have, here in downtown. And now I'm asking Raven to create a building massing on this side with a couple of parameters. So maybe in this case, I'm looking for 7,000 square meter total square footage of my massing with a certain percentage of podium footprint. And we'll see Raven will construct this geometry for us, and then we can sort of iterate over it alongside Raven and always ask, for things like, oh, but what is my gross floor area? Or what is my utilization rate right now? And Raven can on the fly assemble the right calculations for you and give you that information. Yeah. So this is also obviously we're going from right now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm fascinated by this. Yeah, it just makes it with the natural language prompting, it just makes it so much more user friendly. Sorry to interrupt. Please keep going.
No,
Congrats
that's
on
right.
this.
So one of the basically the big unlock here is even just being able to ask questions about your existing models and understanding, what tools are available, what components are available, which is really a big deal. And actually, I know what I did. Okay, so I realize why we're not getting a response, and it's 100% my fault.
No worries.
So the thing is, I'm constantly developing this further, and right now I'm running a developer version without the correct settings set up. So that's on me. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
Also, this is really unnecessary. That might be because we're like Rhino's bringing out some new versions recently, and they're not really compatible with what we had before. So giving us some issues there.
No problem. That's all right. Take your time.
We try to embrace the continuous development.
Real time. Yeah, we're seeing in real time your engineering. So while it is thinking, obviously, it's taking some time to do that. Oh, there you go. It's launching again. Could you give us an insight on what is happening at the back? What kind of large language model is is linked right now? Are you calling an API while this chat is happening? Is it some kind of MCP? Could you share a little bit with us about what's happening in the
Of
background?
course. So the window that you see here, right, that our app is running in, as you can see, it has a web UI, which allows us to do a lot of like, like checkboxes and things like that. And basically we engineered a way to transfer data from, okay, here we go. So we got our response from before. Of course, I don't have the beautiful San Francisco lot with it anymore. Okay. And now it's building a script for us and iterating over it. But it's nice. So now we know at least Raven is alive and well, and I kicked it back into gear.
It happens,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good. So we are setting up a massing here. You can see it's actually already too big, but at the same time, it's all like dynamic. So we can change the sides and the sizing of it all the time. We can change the setback. So we get really a parametric model of the building. I'm sorry that the San Francisco is gone now.
No
That's on me, but
worries.
you can imagine that
No
this would still be on the same
worries.
plot. And then here you see like a constant, like this coverage, which is the utilization rate is constantly updated. And we can now start working on this building. It has a certain number of floors, or actually, no, it automatically adjusts the number of floors and the utilization rate and things like that. And so let's say we want to add a facade panels. We can now like work on this geometry alongside Raven and constantly get updated numbers like, utilization rate and so on. This is really quite a popular application because usually as a real estate developer, you don't want to build a full geometry, but you do need like some detailed massings with, certain setbacks from the property line. Okay, here we go. Now we have this. Okay, I'm just going to turn off some of the previews so that we see the one that Raven is creating. And then there you go. Okay, so these are like the facade panels that Raven's making. You have a lot of control on like, what you want to preview. I actually don't like the standard color that it always makes. So because this is just Grasshopper, I can always go in and still just like change it to whatever I want, keep it very dynamic. And also we see there's still no, but it looks fine. Looks like we got some diamond facade going. It's all dynamic still. I can always say switch to rectangles, and Raven will switch the facade to rectangles. It can adjust the number, like the size of to whatever exact dimensions I might have. I'm rushing through this a little bit because I actually have other demos that I was excited to show you guys. But here we go. Now we have the rectangle facade. So this is one really popular thing, being able to converse with your massing study and getting all the numbers out in time, and really like Raven iterating with it through it alongside you. You can always undo Raven's moves. So if it does something that you didn't like, we can go one step back. Now we're back at the rectangular facade. Okay. So another thing that is quite popular is sunlight studies. So and also geometry. So there are a couple of things here. There's like creating geometry, and then there's analyzing geometry. And so here I have another. Okay. So here I have another example prepared where outside this window there's a railing, and so I'm going to we need a railing on this terrace. What I wanted to show you guys is a little bit of here the like basic Raven. So just creating geometry, no specific agent and nothing. So I'm going to go back here and delete the instructions from what we had before, take out all the special tools. This is just vanilla Raven, and I'm going to ask Raven to make a handrail. So this curve is already loaded into Grasshopper. You see no special instructions anymore for Raven. This is really just like, please make a handrail that flows along this curve. And I can even expand the view that we have of the 3D model here a little bit. So you see that this is actually a villa, has a beautiful view out the window. And it's a model that I use to show you guys a couple of different things. So I'm going to start off with a handrail, and then depending on time, we'll do a sunlight study or also a staircase inside this villa. And really, CAD is two things, right? It's making geometry and it's like analyzing geometry. So here you see we have our handrail at the window, and we can of course change like how many posts there are on the handrail and all those things. 20, we might even want more. Okay, make it 40 posts and preview white. Let's see if that works. So the geometry from Grasshopper is always inserted in this red, and we'll see if Raven can give us the color preview. So making geometry is a really big part of CAD, but then also analyzing geometry is a really big part of CAD. And I actually really want to get to that. So we will use the handrail in the next demo as well. So here we go. Now we have a white preview. Very good. And I will just take this out as a group, okay, which now adds this geometry into the model. So now I can select it here. And you see it wraps around the corner too. And I will move on to show you guys the second part of CAD, which is analysis. So analysis is a really important part of CAD because it really matters what you model, right? You model things for the real world. And so you want to know what will happen once you do put it into the real world. And so I will just was furniture meshes, maybe add it into this. So actually I will select the furniture meshes group and our newly made outside railing, and I will load them into this group. So these groups you see here are really just selections of things in this model, like for example, the floor and the furniture. And now I have another little prompt prepared that is a sunlight analysis study, and I will copy it into Raven, and suddenly Raven will become a great user of Ladybug and sunlight analysis. So just close Raven again, have your prompt in there, and then I'm going to just ask him to run a sunlight analysis for the month of May, which that means that, you know, where, if I am going to buy this villa or if I'm going to build this villa here, how will it look like? Like, how sunny is it going to be in May? Is the sun already too high and it won't reach into the room and I will be sort of shaded if this is a really sunny place? Or are the windows high enough that I still get a lot of sun in summer, even though the sun might be high up? And now you see Raven is offering me to help, but first we need to fetch weather data, which is a specific location, which in this case is Point Reyes in near San Francisco. So it gives me the link to this weather map where from around the world you can find weather files. And this happens to be exactly where my location is. So I just copy this and I hand it back to Raven and say, perfect, here's the link from the location that I've selected from this map. And you see Raven, the geometry agent, suddenly is Raven, the Ladybug agent, and even knows, you know, like can direct me to the right link to fetch for this. And so you see this now becomes an input here to fetch the weather data. So Raven just added these components to import the weather data using the Ladybug plugin. So Ladybug is an example of a plugin from this ecosystem that I was talking about earlier, where developers keep building for each other. Great. And so now you see we're constructing here an analysis period, but you don't even have to worry about all of this because Raven is taking care of it for you. Okay, I might have lagged a little bit there because it was running the analysis, but here you go. Now you can see, the light path, how far it reaches in May. And you notice that the sun is really high up. So the window is really shading us from most of the sun, right? And if I now ask Raven, I think we're done. Great, I'm ready for your next instruction. What would this look like in January, where, you know, we expect the sun to be lower? Also, we're in a south-facing location, so the sun might even move behind us. Like the sun would come down lower, and I would expect that we get more sun into the building. And so Raven is thinking about it. Now I might be lagging again. I don't know, because we're running the analysis on the computer. I can already see that something's happening.
Question, Moritz. Did we feed, oh, there you go. Did we feed Raven the geolocation of this model?
No, so the geolocation. So remember, Raven asked me, I need the weather data for your location. Please go to this website to find it. So this website has weather data from many different places around the world. So wherever you're located in Japan, you can find the weather data for your local. And so the thing is, I actually fetched one that I know exists for Point Reyes. So Point Reyes is this national park or national seashore just north of San Francisco. So here's San Francisco, and here's actually my plot. So I'm going to show you guys. This is the sunlight analysis for January. So you see the roof is not shading us anymore, so we get a lot more sunlight inside, which is really important in winter. And if we now zoom out, you will see that, actually, I'm sorry, that was way too far. But I actually have Point Reyes. I think we're still running analysis here. Let me just stop this. Okay. And now you see this is actually the Point Reyes plot that we just saw on the map. And the house sits right here on this shore. Can you see that? I hope it's not lagging anymore. It's really like running a sunlight analysis study and the zoom and this big file gets a little bit messy. Okay. So this is our house. You can see the sunlight analysis works perfectly, and we are in Point Reyes. And here you see sort of a preview of where the sun is in January. Yeah. So that was the sunlight analysis version. Now, you tell me if you would also like to see me make a staircase for this house, or if we move on from the demo.
I just have written 12 questions I want to ask you. Selfish questions. No, but this is fascinating. Bravo. I mean, and also I just have to commend you for live demos are 200 times harder than 2,000 times infinitely harder than recorded video. So this is just very, very good of you to do this for us.
You know, it's just on me. I keep working on it all the time with my team, and I always have new versions of Raven that I'm testing. And so basically I forgot to load on the safe one, and you guys got a little preview of what it's like when you're making cutting edge software. So here in the back, we have these two levels, right? We have a really big entry and then we have these two levels, and now what we want is a beautiful staircase. So we're going to go back to actually reopen Raven so we get a fresh chat, and then just removing all the special instructions, removing the special tools. So it's just vanilla Raven once again. And then I have a little prompt here that's just model me a spiraling staircase. You see I already loaded the center line in here. It's really very easy. When you create a line component, you just right click it, you say set one line, you set the line in the right place, and now it's here. If you right click on it, you can give it a nickname. And actually Raven makes it so that if you give specific nicknames to your components, they appear up here. So it's very easy to find your way around the model. That we do that because Raven, unlike human Grasshopper users, is really good at annotating everything and making sure that it's like well documented what's going on in your script. So that's a very popular feature that we have, is that Raven helps you annotate your scripts when you make it with Raven. And so now we're remaking a complete geometry from scratch. So it will take Raven a little bit longer again. And basically what we're looking for is create a sweeping staircase that will bring us up to the second level. Because the line has a certain length, Raven already knows how far the staircase has to go. So if you hover over this line, you will see it's 4 meters. So it's actually a really high ceiling in this building. And I also specified that I want 120 degrees of turn. So it's like 1/3 of a circle. And that should be like a nice axis up to the top. And you were asking before about like what models and things. And, we've been doing this for a really long time. There was a time before the reasoning models existed when it was all just asking several LLMs to write questions and things like that. But by now, it's like it's still a mix. It's a mix of different models, and it's also we have our own databases and things like that we interact with. But really, the most important thing is, and you can maybe also see it in the demo, that Raven keeps getting grounded by Grasshopper. So it creates stuff, and then Grasshopper gives them back errors or warnings or measurements or whatever, and Raven can iterate, right? Mm-hmm. So this sort of connection of bringing the AI model really, really close to the CAD system, and they can like work on something in the symbiosis. I think like that's essential to what we're doing. Okay, so here we see Raven actually cleaned up the script for us and made it one big cluster, which would be great, but somehow the preview isn't loading. So there we go. All of the nodes, it's funny that this happened now in the demo, are nicely sorted in here for us, and Raven put out the staircase, including, of course, everything that we might want to change. So we can change the width of the stairs. We can change where the rotation begins because I specified that in the prompt. So here we go. Now it's starting to look nice. We can move the inner radius. So, make it very narrow or make it really like wide and welcoming. This is what I intended. And then we have a color swatch here that right now is set to 0 alpha, but we can, of course, make it white again so it matches our model. And I get a lot of controls here. And I like to, push Raven a little further, sometimes for demos like this. So let's add outer handrail to make this up to code.
I love that.
And because otherwise, it's all pie in the sky geometry. But yeah, so you see that the vanilla Raven without any special instructions, without any special tools is really just great at geometry. And that's what the basics of Grasshopper are all about. Now, this cluster that I have here, you can imagine when your script gets more complicated and you get lost in this like spaghetti node salad. And so we're starting to teach Raven to cluster and organize scripts better. And so what you saw right here was step one of doing that.
So when was your eureka moment, Moritz?
I mean, so it's October now. So like a year and a half ago, I figured that if apps can write code and Python code, then they should be able to somehow write this graph code too. And I think the first thing that we like managed to make was a box. There's like you build all this stuff and then what it creates is like a box. But it does create the right box with like the right measurements. That was about a year and a half ago. That was quite the eureka moment. But otherwise, I must say it's less of a one big idea and more of a constant iteration. So when we brought out Raven in February, it was one component on the canvas like this that would take your API key and as a string input, your prompt as a string input, and then a little button, and it would just like add something to your canvas. It would just like add a couple nodes, and that's it. It couldn't change anything. It wouldn't be conversational. It was very like short and flat. And so now this like self-recovering, like fixing its own issues kind of Raven that we have now is really really quite exciting and something completely different from what we were used to and where we started. And I think as you work with customers, as you listen to their use cases and their experience, then you figure out what your good idea was. And then you can tell everyone that you had this idea in the first place. But I think the
For sure,
eureka
that
moment
was
comes from
iterative.
customer interactions. Yeah. Well, we'll see if
Who were your first customers? You mentioned customers.
that's a good question. So also, I mean, it looks like we're getting a handrail here.
Right.
The first is just that we're previewing geometry that is like before it's moved, so that it might look a little preview off. So there we go. Now we have our handrail.
Okay.
And of course it should have suspenders and everything, and we can iterate over this a little longer. So the first customer that I talked to, because I talked to all of the customers, and that was really, really quite excited, was someone who spends, days and days in front of Rhino, modeling things, flattening objects, and so on, and to create basically files that can be manufactured. And whenever the decision is made to, like change 5 inches here or, take off a centimeter there, he has to rebuild the whole file. So he has to go back into Rhino, change everything, flatten it again, and so on. And for him, it was really a huge eureka moment when Raven started building him little script snippets. So it's not that he could type in his workflow once and Raven handled it, but it's the fact that he understands his CAD workflow because he's a CAD professional, but he doesn't understand the programming part of Grasshopper. He could articulate what he was trying to achieve, and Raven could build him the script for it. And so he would copy and paste together little Raven snippets into his like larger workflow and basically become an automation engineer as a CAD person, fully enabled by Raven, just because it like unlocked access to scripting for him. And that, I think, like that makes a really big difference. Like to him, it's from like spending days and days and days redoing CAD work to like suddenly being able to build parametric models, scripted models, and automate his own workflow. So that was a really, really big one. And then another thing that we're seeing now is architecture firms specifically, or IT firms that have workflows in Grasshopper today. They have the problem that maybe 1 or 2% of their workforce are scripting and Grasshopper enabled, but they would really like it to be 50%. And so architects are redoing work all the time, and they're unable to use tools, even tools that are built by their colleagues internally, because they don't understand programming. They're not programmers, they're architects, right? So like they don't want to go and learn Grasshopper from scratch, but they just need to use the tools that are already made by other people in the firm. And so they are actually able to take those scripts from other people, adjust them, understand them, change them, use them in their workflow just by having Raven by their side. So instead of having one person do all the energy simulation, all the sound and wind and daylight and all the things that are required for a project, now anyone who's working on it can do that, because with Raven the tools become accessible, right? So architecture firms and like internal script sharing and knowledge sharing is another really big thing that we're seeing.
So your first customers had already been your target market, which is designers, architects who are not necessarily
so
programmers.
we did learn a lot. I mean, I used to think that this is in the way that AI programming tools are for developers and for professionals. I thought this was a tool for experts in programming and experts in Grasshopper, and they could expand their capabilities. But it really turned out to be different. It turned out to be bringing people into programming and into automation that are not sort of like they are already, they've heard Grasshopper in their school, they did like a class maybe in their masters, but it's not part of their work yet. But they're sort of on the brink, and bringing these people in is really a huge efficiency gain and just like very, very valuable for our customers. And so that's what we learned.
Definitely.
We sort of moved from being a professional, like a tool for the Grasshopper person in your firm, to making you Grasshopper enabled. There was definitely
instead
a lot
of
of learning
focusing,
there.
I'm sure, and it's the same for anyone building a business. You put like 250 times before you actually find a clear way, and you keep doing that. So absolutely, I think that sounds pretty much normal. And I kind of understand what you mean, like from treating this as a tool for the person who's good at the computers in the team, you make everyone become the person who's good at computers, because now they've said this. I do want to share one thing. This reminds me of my own realization in the past 6 months when I also talk to our clients, and we do both customized solutions as well as we provide like tech stacks, AI implementation plans or AI training plans for developers, like governments and engineers, contractors, subcontractors, architectural firms, even wall paint finish suppliers. So like a whole wide range. And at the very beginning, I thought that architects would be most interested on jumping on the AI bandwagon.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it was, guess who? The clients, like the developers. They want to bring in-house. So what you showed us the first thing, like the feasibility studies, they will lap it up immediately. Like this is they want as much control as they can have
Yeah, of course, of
in-house.
course.
Yeah. And then, so I think with this, okay, first of all, the developers I've come across, they may be slightly a bit more analog than, yeah, full stop. So they will need some training, maybe not too much. Like I can see this is very user friendly, I would say, but it's still needed, right? So I'd say maybe like 3 sessions and so like 3 workshops, right? And then they can do their own feasibility studies, like for a developer who has their in-house team. For developers whose culture is to outsource, then it's the architects who would, like their
Yeah.
consultants who would be benefiting from this. And I definitely think Raven should actually be part of architecture firms' tech stack, especially after I see what you showed us. And you've only showed us a couple of use cases due to time, but I can already see the massive other kinds of example. You can basically build a whole library of demos. And I'm
Exactly.
seeing that's also within your to do for your next month, perhaps like other and it could be categorized like real estate developers, okay, feasibility studies and code compliance, blah blah blah. And then for architects,
Yeah.
it could be like a handrail from sunlight analysis. That's also good for the sustainability guys. And the light consultants, this is fantastic, right? So a huge potential there, Marit. So I also want to ask if more about the business now. We're now going into the 15 minutes where I ask selfish questions. Of course, this is why I do my podcast. So this you're running the business, and this is a SaaS. I would say it's or a platform as a service or software as a service within a software. And you did mention that this is starting off as a very niche market, but actually you have this mission to grow it to become, widely popular, and perhaps you will make the UI, etc., in the future. So we talked about many different clients, either, architects who work alone, architects who work in a small office, architects who work in large office, etc. How do they buy it right now?
Very good question. Very good question. So we really are, and this is also comes from the heart, like kind of community people. So we like this like Grasshopper world of you can publish a plugin and people can just download it. And it's like very sort of people discover plugins all the time. And so we actually started off with there's this website, Food for Rhino, that like is full of plugins. Most of them are for free. You can go in here, download it, specific tools to do whatever your use case is. So this is like where we started. We just put it out there. And then if you come to our website, you create an account, you get a little bit of free usage. People try it out. We get like, many people every day. They come to us, they like try out Raven, give it a go. We also, which like helps us understand, what are people looking for? What are their needs? What do they expect? And so on. And then when you're in Raven here, actually, I might be able to show you this. First off, to install Raven, there is like a Rhino provided package manager. So all you need to do is within Rhino, type package manager and this window pops up and then you can type in Raven, right? One click and it's installed. Like this is how easy, this is our distribution. Within Rhino, install, done. And then you open up Raven and you will see signed out now, right? So now you need to log in or sign up. And here you can see we got like a free and a pro tier. So we really make like the entry as easy as possible. So one-click install on your Rhino package manager, which is also, if you go on our website and you say install for Rhino, it literally opens your Rhino, opens it with Raven selected, and you just have to install. Like that's how easy we make it to get you started. And then this is like get it out to as many people as possible. Get the word out. Everybody should try it. I need to make the tool better. I need to understand what you use it for. This is best like a crowd effort, And then you use it a little bit, you hit a usage limit, then it asks you, here you can upgrade our like basic just pro tier is $50 a month right now, and you can keep using it. Great. Like this is like the basic, this is how we get out there. So the computer architecture firm, exactly. Computer guy in your architecture firm does this on his weekend project, takes out his credit card, $50, like, no damage done. Like he tries stuff out. Great. And now he's going to tell his manager, like, hey, there's this AI tool. It's kind of cool. We should like look at this. So then we have teams that, we set up calls with like teams. So we have teams in big architecture firms, construction firms, real estate firms, and so on. They talk to us. And now we have an enterprise offering, right? Enterprise offering, single sign on, a data silo. Because if you use it like this, like the the basic personal version. Of course, it helps us improve our tool as well. If you have, data restrictions, enterprise side. So enterprise is like a certain number of seats, certain, privileges that you get. So that's how we get into the firms. Really putting this out there, making it easy and accessible as possible. It gives us many things, like the community, like rallies around it. Everybody's seen it. Everybody tries it. The people who are building plugins, like Ladybug, for example, people like that are now working with us to like make their plugins more compatible with it, right? So just, what day is it? Tuesday. On Friday, so really just a few days ago, before the weekend, we were in Stockholm at the Rhino developer meetup, which is where all these people that develop with Rhino, all of the plugin publishers, all of the really, really techy guys and the big architecture firms, they all come together in Stockholm. And we actually took that opportunity to announce a new standard that we're working with these plugin firms together to like make them interoperable for AI systems. So in the future, if you use any of these plugins here or all the other ones that exist, they will be even more compatible with Raven. Like Raven will have like perfect example files ready, knows where to look up, like which forums to search and so on. So you can expect like the capability of plugin usage to like go up. And of course, it's great for them because they have complicated plugins that do great things, but are not so easy to use. And so making them compatible with Raven brings a lot of customers to their plugins. So it's really the strategy we have is sort of, go really broad, get everyone to use Raven in the space, understand it better, because this is the cutting edge, like early AI thing where how to do it best and what to use it for and so on are all sort of moving questions. The ground is moving. And so getting feedback, iterating, having users is like the most important thing, because you can dream up something in your lab. If it doesn't ever get used in real world and doesn't ever see the light of day, it's not good for anyone. So we make it super easy to get on. We make it possible for you to for $50 to like keep using it. And then we go and come into your firm and really bring like enterprise level, utility to them. But we can also offer you much more because we have all these users. So we understand their usage. We understand which plugins we need to make good, So once we get into your enterprise, the value that you get is like much more guaranteed and much more broadly supported. So that's basically how we do it.
Oh, I mean, not just developing the software itself, you need separate brain to think about the business model. I think that is really that's the case, right? Bravo, you've been multitasking, and also you've been all kinds of time zones, like in the UK and stuff in Silicon Valley. Yeah, well, fascinating. I have a technical question. So my team is based in Hong Kong, even though I'm currently in Japan. And ChatGPT and Claude are not available unless we use a VPN. So I understand that Raven has a combination of different large language models. But tell me, is it possible for us to use it in that part of the world?
I don't know.
Let's try.
I know that like I actually hosted a workshop at Tongji in Shanghai in summer. So we were all using it there. We did not run into trouble. Now, this is actually like, there's sort of broader questions within your questions. So I can't tell you if you can use it in mainland China or in Hong Kong. You have to tell me because I'm not there right now. I know in summer we used it and we didn't run into trouble, but there's a certain question around like, data access and so on. If you go into really big enterprise, they don't want you to interact with, developer APIs either. And so some companies, even big architecture firms, have contracts, for example, through Azure to have a privately hosted OpenAI access. So they get API access for like no data retention LLMs hosted in Europe. And then they are not allowed to use GPT at their work, but they're allowed to use this, right? Which is sort of a data siloed version of the LLM. And we can use that. We can run Raven. Like this is obviously only at a specific enterprise size because it creates a lot of extra work for us, but we can run Raven with your private Azure hosted or any other version of that. And so maybe if there's a big enterprise opportunity within China and we need to run this through a Chinese hosted provider, it's possible.
So now, well, we will let you know. Actually, we spoke with your co-founder, Phil, I think maybe a month ago, and we were actually talking about collaborating on some workshops upcoming for Raven as well. So, well, we definitely let you know how it goes when we actually do that, because we also want to see if university students would actually also be part of your markets, perhaps.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. There's a lot of professors reaching out to us and also students doing their homework using Raven. Don't do that. Definitely a popular crowd for Raven.
Fantastic. Okay, so oh wow, we got a really nice question in the chat. I think I'd go into go into that. It can't be too selfish and keep you for too long. Okay, thank you so much, Winston, for this question. So his question is, he's a part two graduate of Manchester and based in the UK. Maybe you guys are very close.
Nice.
Also very interested in computational and recently solidifying AI workflows. He really likes your software and he says, I have trialed it myself very recently. It's very handy. Okay. Curious to know, what are your plans on integrating the interaction between a user's custom script, PY3 and C# and native Grasshopper, especially handling data on an urban scale? Another thing would be, could it have user support so individuals could modify Raven to their liking, similar to how people add plugins to Grasshopper via Food for Rhino, or how people customize their own large language models in LM Studio? You see, we have a very high quality audience. That's a very high quality question.
That's a great question. So,
Yeah.
So Raven is constantly getting better and we're adding things. So specifically the first part of the question, supporting custom scripts, C#, Python. Right now, Raven can build around your script. It just doesn't know what's going on inside. So if you have a C# script on your canvas, right, you can load any existing Grasshopper file here. You can actually, I need to close this. And then here you can see I can just load an existing, this is like a carousel. You can load any file in and then started working on it with Raven. So your firm probably already has Grasshopper files. You can load them in and then start working alongside Raven on those files. That's no problem. Now you can do that even when you have custom script components. So custom script components, for those who don't know, this is what they would look like. So it's like a C# script. You open it, then you write your code, you close it, and you get like inputs and outputs, and you can do whatever you want. So Raven can work with them if you've already written them and you just put them in there. Now, in the future, of course, Raven will write them for you. It will write Python and C# scripts. This is like a feature that we're actively developing. It's very popular in Grasshopper to also write code. So not just the nodes, but a mixture of the two. And so basically that's going to happen and it will just like natively integrate with them, which means that if you bring your existing C# script and then you need to edit it or whatever, Raven will just handle that. That's like very clear. Now, to expand, actually, let me think if I can remember the second part of the question, or maybe I can read it in chat. Okay, integrating with the user's custom script. Yes. Now, the second question is about modifying. So we already saw that you can use prompts to give Raven certain capabilities. For example, explain how daylight simulation works and where to find daylight like weather files. And this prompt is all you need to like run Ladybug. Now, we are working on two different things. One of them is this standard way to interact with plugins that will make Raven better at Karamba, which is like a FEM simulation, Shapediver, which creates web front ends of Grasshopper. And of course, Ladybug will be part of that. So this kind of making Raven good at using a certain plugin, which is also customization, is an open standard, which means you can go and change it. Like if you have a plugin that you want to use, you can go and create your own instructions for it, right? So this is already basically in the like public. We said that how that's going to work. So you can go and change those instruction models. The other thing we're building is also a workflow library, which is also an open file format that you can build instructions for your specific use case of Raven, and Raven will become good at that. So the custom instructions here are really a very lightweight version of that. So imagine like a more intricate way to customize Raven and also switch between different personas. So you can build a Raven that does MEP for you, or you can build a Raven for facade panelization. You can enrich it with your scripts, example scripts and clusters that you want sort of referenced in conversation and you wanted to use. So that's kind of the workflow aspect that we're also working on, which I think is pretty much what you asked for. Now, I would love for us to build a sort of community space of workflow instructions, so that if someone builds a really good, Raven facade panelization agent, then everybody can use it. But this is something that will not happen at the enterprise scale because they are not interested in it. So the enterprise keeps this kind of knowledge internal, but Raven has a very strong, user community, and the user community, I hope, will like share these workflow files. But if they do or not, like that's up to them. Both of those things are definitely under development. So I think even though you're not going to develop plugins for Raven, it's going to feel like you develop plugins for Ravens because you develop versions that are really good at certain things. They can use your existing files and stuff like that. So I think that this personalization is really important because everybody has different tastes and workflows. So
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the way you're building it right now really allows for the customization and sustainability in terms of growth. Like it can keep growing exponentially and organically as well. So, Moritz, I ask this question every time to my guests. And that is, if you need to describe success in one word, what would that word be for you?
I mean, with this, I think success for me would be just like being a kind of tool that you could not imagine living without after you've used it. So maybe something like irreplaceable. So
Ah, okay.
once you use Raven, your horizon of possibility is broadened so much that it becomes irreplaceable to your work and your workflow because it's such a multiplier of your agency. So yeah, that's what I hope to be successful with.
If we zoom out away from the tool and we just
Uh-huh.
look at your journey overall, would you say irreplaceable is also the word you would use for success, or there's something else?
No, no. I do care about work that is useful to people. So the like getting people to a point where they feel like and they actively can like do and achieve more is something that I really care about. So in this case, I'm building a tool that like lets you do more. In other cases, maybe I do work that take work off your shoulder. But this sort of idea of expanding your agency, the agency of other people, I think it's really, really central. Like I think humans are capable of, incredible things. And sometimes there's nasty stuff in the way. And in this case, it's, clicking around in your computer for a really long time that is sort of not you exercising your agency, but you being forced into the clicking on the computer by a system of
Mhm.
we built CAD 30 years ago and it's all based on how drawings used to be. And so now you just need to digitize these drawings and you don't get to exercise your actual like capabilities. Like you are probably a creative and intelligent and like trained and everything human being that has things to do and say, and then sometimes there's just dull stuff that is like put in front of you and it keeps you from exercising that. And so like enabling other people to exercise their agency more, I think is really really important to me, and that can be in many different ways,
Sure.
but it's something that like drives me for sure.
Amazing. So perhaps the word is enabling when we zoom out. Amazing. Wow. Moritz, I really admire your enthusiasm and passion and your own work. And I think you take it very seriously, also in a very active way, action-driven and goal-oriented way. But at the same time, caring so much about your community. And like you said, from your heart, you do take note of what kind of feedback people give you. So I have rooting for you, simply said, rooting for you and your team, and
Thank you.
can't wait to see what happens next. I think you're just starting out, but already seeing so much, right?
Mm.
So I think there's so much to also look forward to, I think.
I hope so, of course.
Thank you so much for your time. This is great. And thank you so much for your energy. Thank you so much for showing us this wonderful demo that you have here. I can't wait to share with the whole entire online world as well. Thank you. And
I'm
okay,
glad.
one
Well,
last thing. Where should
yeah.
people find Raven? Do they type in romantic labs and they will find, where do
Lab.
people find?
The easiest way is to go directly to the website romantic.technology. But even if you ask me about a Raven or about an AI Grasshopper tool, you'll find us.
Oh, there you go. You've hacked the, what you call it, Gen AI EO,
Exactly.
IKEA.
Of
Oh, fantastic. Well done. Okay, Moritz. I hope I'll see you someplace in the world, where however we travel. But all the best and
course.
wishing you good luck. You have a supporter here in Asia, and we will continue to support you and cheer you on. So good luck with everything.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for hosting me. This is great.
Definitely a
Have a good
pleasure.
evening.
Bye bye. Yes, bye.
Bye.